Good morning, Morai Rabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on Daf Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph, the second wide line from the top of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a schut for Rifah Shemav. Rachel Simcha Bad Nahid, that should have full recovery, Rifah Shema. She's having upcoming surgery for her. She should have full recovery, Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. This week's learnings of the community has been graciously dedicated by the Dayan family, the Kohen family, and Shei family. It should be an ultimate schut for all their families, Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. Okay, so we are at the tail end of our Gemara before the next very exciting Mishnah, and we spoke about the prohibition against making bald spots, shaving the sides of the head and shaving with a razor on the areas of the beard. Says the Gemara, Machvi Rav Sheshet ben Pirki Resha, that this Isur of Chayav al Harosh, that if you shave the sides of the head short and make it look like he doesn't have hair from the two sides, Rav Sheshet would actually show it to his students where exactly this starts. Again, we spoke about this before, where exactly this starts. The words of Chazon Ish that we are machmir now, there's even more so than what the Ikar Adin is, but also depending on the hairline that every person has, sometimes you have two areas of corner, and it will become questionable. Is it the lower edge until the back of the ear, or is it the higher end to the back of the ear? So hence the need for showing Ben Pirki Resha. Rav Sheshet would actually show his students where exactly this area is. Ve'ala zakan shtayim mikan u'shtayim mikan ve'achad milemata. And we mentioned that there are 5 areas of the zakan, the beard, that would be considered an isur. Machvi Rav Sheshet, again, Rav Sheshet would show to his talmidim Ben Pirki Dedigna. He would show them exactly where it is. So we mentioned 3-way machloket Rishonim. The Rivan, by us here we no longer have Rashi. The Rivan has one way. Rashi himself in Masechet Shvuot has it a different way, and Rabbeinu Hananel has yet a third option of where these 5 spots on the beard is. You will end up between the 3 of them, and there's more, but between the 3 of them, you'll end up with 9 different areas that would be asur, would be the 2 sides of the attachment of the jaw, the upper jawbone to the skull. It will be the 2 lower edges of the lower jaw, would be the 2 areas on the side of your chin. Of course, the center, the middle of the chin will be according to almost everybody, and according to Rabbeinu Hananel, added 2 points are the 2 sides of safam, of the area of the mustache. So that added up to 9 different spots. So hence again the necessity for him to show where it was. You see that for them, something that for them would be simple, for us nothing becomes simple once you have the discrepancy within the different shitot. But nevertheless, that's how you try not to touch that area. Like Maran Shcharuch actually writes, says all of these area lo tiga boyad, don't touch. Hence, you see many of the yeshiva communities that have their beard line is lower, and then the entire width, kol rochav makom zeh, writes Maran Shulchan lo tiga boya, do not touch it, right? So that's the reason for it, because they want to make sure that the peot harosh and peot hazakan are kept properly. Now, one of the reasons that some of the Hasidim they have long peot, aside from there are different shitot within the Hasidim, the Talmidim of Hatam Sofer, Al Pi Kabbalah, they have the hairs of the peot come until the place of the chin, if you would open it. And then there are others who don't ever touch their peot, and it's long, long peot. They tie it under the yarmulke and so on, and that comes perhaps from this language of lo tiga boya, do not ever touch it. But nevertheless, it becomes actually a debate, even according to the Kabbalah, what exactly is the length of the peot. Even those who Kabbalistically keep their peot longer, the Ben Ish Chai famously writes that a person should have long peot. He actually is meshabeach, he praises the Ashkenazi community. He says, like the Ashkenazim, everyone should have peot like that. But nevertheless, it's not so simple, even according to Kabbalah, if it should be that long, or it should be a little bit just long, that he could sit behind the ear. Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Hillel, in his Kabbalistic Tshuvot, has an essay, a tshuva, a response on this as well. Again, the spectrum is a wide spectrum when it comes to this. Now, the minimum halachic thing is it should be at least able to hold and bend back the hair, which becomes a question. What exactly is the length of that? Is it 4.5 millimeters, which would be number 1.5 haircut, basically, according to the standard machines, or is it bigger, or is it shorter? So a person should ask a question, based on how they want to be lenient, or they want to not be lenient. It depends. Some people are looking for leniencies, and some people are actually looking not to be lenient. They don't want to mess with anything. They want the safest shita, as everyone should. So therefore, a person should speak to their local moreh hora'ah on that area. And again, same thing happens to be with the beard. Again, this is discussing all the different types of shavers and trimmers and lift and cut and not lift and cut, and all that would be way beyond the scope of our talk. But the concept of shaving a beard, al pi Kabbalah, not al pi Kabbalah, that by itself is a debate. Many of the Mekubalim, and the Ben Ish Chai seems to write this in his Sefer Ben Yehoyada. The Ben Ish Chai discusses that al pi Arizal, a person should not have any trimming of their beard. He writes this on the Gemara, when Daf Yudalet, the Gemara discusses the oil as kana aron ayored al pi midotav, and the Ben Ish Chai says, well, wait a second. It can't be that Aaron HaKohen was trimming his beard. According to Kabbalah, that's asur, right? So that in a Perush and Gemara, the Ben Ish Chai writes it like this, but it seems to be also a stira with what the Ben Ish Chai himself writes, or apparently writes in a tshuva in Chelek Dalit of his response in Rav Pe'alim. In Rav Pe'alim, Chelek Dalit, every Chelek, every volume of the tshuvot of the Ben Ish Chai has the 4 segments of Shulchan Aruch, of Orach Chaim, Yoreh De'ah, Ibn Ha'ezer, and Choshen Mishpat. But then he also has a segment called Sod Yesharim. Sod Yesharim is a Kabbalistic area of his response. It discusses questions of Kabbalah, very interesting ones. Somebody, for instance, asked him, he said, wait a second, Hacham, we say Gan Eden is on this earth, right? Gan Eden is not like some spiritual reality. So where is it? We know, we have the map back then, without the satellite, and so still they felt they knew everything about everything. So where is this Gan Eden? It must be big if all these tzaddikim of all these generations have been there, so it must be a large place. It's like, they're not giving you a matchbox to live in Gan Eden, right? It has to be a larger area. So where is it that we don't know? And the Ben Ish Chai actually answers these types of questions, very intriguing, interesting questions. So one of the tshuvot that he writes in Chelek Dalit of his Rav Pe'alim, in this segment of the Kabbalistic things of Sod Yesharim in Siman Hey, is about shaving beard. Can you trim your beard? Says the Ben Ish Chai. Well, he was also asked about pubic hair and so on, but he is discussing this area, but not al pi halacha, al pi Kabbalah. And there, he seems to bring the language of Arizal, and he seems to say that, well, what the Arizal says, you can't pull out here. That's Isur Gadol. That is a very, but trimming it, it's not, he himself was Mahmir, Ariya Kadosh was Mahmir himself, but he seems to say that it's not a problem, the length of it doesn't almost matter, right? Seems to say that pulling out a hair, it uproots the sinorot shefa, whatever that means, the pipelines of spiritual energy, of shefa, but if you trim it, that's fine, he seems to say. So you have here an apparent stira between the two places in what the Ben Ish Chai himself wrote, and the Kama Kul Musim Nishtagru, so much ink has been spilled on trying to verify what the Ben Ish Chai actually held. Actually, one of his dedicated Talmidim, Rabbi Sion Hazan Alav Shalom, he's actually the one that wrote the Hakdama, the preface to the Ben Ish Chai's Kabbalistic Sefer called Da'at Utvuna. Ben Ish Chai wrote the Kabbalah Sefer that he felt that you have to read that book 15 times before you start Otrot Chaim or Etz Chaim. That would be the preface to get you ready for that limud. But he writes in the Hakdama, he's one of the, again, main students, him and Rab Nisim Kachuri, they took out this tshuva from Rab Ba'alim. If you take a look at not the most recent print of Rab Ba'alim, but the one before, you'll turn the page to Sod Yesharim Siman Hey, and there is like an empty place in the middle of the two tshuvot, like mamash empty. The place of it is still there, because they didn't want to change the typeset of the page, but they took out that piece because he felt that it's impossible that Ben Ish Chai wrote this. He says that the Chelik Dalit, the fourth volume of the Ben Ish Chai, was printed after Ben Ish Chai's death. That's the only volume that was printed, and must have been that the tshuva of one of his students or something else got mixed with his writings, and it was printed with his printing, and therefore it's not legitimate, it is not verified, and therefore they took it out. You know, I personally don't like to do that, because once you do that, then the whole thing is up for grabs. Now, in the later prints, the one that we have here in the Bet Midrash over here, you have that back put inside, because apparently they found the Ktav Yad of the Ben Ish Chai. So it seems to become a little bit of a question. Al Pi Kabbalah, can you do it? Can you not do it? And this becomes a very big question. In actually, the Khatam Sofer was asked this question. The Khatam Sofer, in one of his tshuvot, I think maybe Kuf Lamed Het, I don't remember exactly the address, but he was asked from one of the individuals who sent number of questions to the Khatam Sofer about shaving beard. He was very unhappy, this individual, the Shoel, was very unhappy with this whole new minhag of shaving. Says, why is that not Darkei Mori? Bechukotehem lo telechu. It should not be, it should be asur. Why is this clean-shaven business that we have, right? Now, you have to understand the Gadlut of Khatam Sofer. Khatam Sofer was the undisputed Gadol Ador of his generation. And he was the foremost fighter. He dedicated his life and his writing skills to fight and to combat reform. To the degree that one of my friend's father wrote an entire sefer, Safra v'Saifa, about the Khatam Sofer's letters and shuvot against the reform and conservative movements, because that was rampant in his time. Where it was the generation that they snatched away the majority of what they snatched away, and the destruction that came from reform and conservative was really apparent because of that generation. So, with that, all of that said, when I started reading the tshuva, I was like, oh, he's going to go at it. He's going to say it's Isur D'Oraita. He doesn't. Khatam Sofer says, what? Next thing you're going to ask is, the Gemara says wearing black shoes is Darkei Mori. Right? But these things do change. They are subjective things. And then he goes through a little history of the fact that one of the European kings was a saris, so he couldn't grow a beard, and that's when it changed from every man having a beard to people starting to be clean shaven, because the king was like that, and they pushed it because not to embarrass the king. So you make it whenever you don't want to embarrass, you just make it cool. That's basically what they did. So Khatam Sofer says, well, these things do change, and then the Khatam Sofer says, well, all the Mekubalim of Italy, they are clean shaven. The Mekubalim, because the Ramah Mipano, Rabbi Menachem Azaria Mipano, was the Rosh HaMekubalim. He felt, again, this gets a little bit complex and a little beyond the scope of this discussion, but they felt, and this is brought in Gilyon Maharsha and Shulchan Aruch, it's brought in many, that they felt that Al Pi Kabbalah in Chutz La'aretz, there's no inyan for having a beard. So the Ramchal, the holy Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, was a clean-shaven individual, right? So about 200 years ago, right? And so was Menachem Azaria Mipano, which is actually very interesting because Khatam Sofer writes this. He says he was clean-shaven, but the only picture we have from Ramah Mipano actually has a very nice full beard. So it gets very, very questionable. This is one of those like sensitive buttons that I should not be pushing on record, certainly. But the accepted thing, Al Pi Kabbalah, is that you don't touch that beard ever. You don't trim it, you don't shave it, and hence, because that's the simple understanding of the Mekubalim and Divrei Arizal, that's why you see that many of the Hasidim, they do not touch it. But on the other hand, the flip side of it would be that pulling hair out would be certainly a Isur Gadol. So I always thought to myself that the reason Rabbi Zion Abba Shaul Shalom had a very, very short trimmed hair in his facial hair was because of this. He wanted to be mahmir for this Ben Ish Chai that we just mentioned in Siman Hein Sod Yesharim. So he had beard. He made it in such a way that he can't play with it or pull it out, but nevertheless was mekel on trimming it once. Anyways, the minhag has been like that. This was my thesis that I actually saw that someone wrote that actually was the reason that he did it. So I'm happy to be mehaven to that. But nevertheless, the accepted practice, Al Pi Kabbalah, would be do not touch that area at all. And the Hasidei Chabad, they don't even touch their mustache, right? Which, according to others, that would be mutar. That's not part of the Kabbalistic inyan of beard, but you'll realize the distinct differences between Hasidei Chabad and other segments of Hasidim is that area of I think it gets into much more thing because Al Pi Kabbalah, the truth is, the inyan of having a beard is very important because the Ari HaKadosh writes, all of the shefa that the person receives is through sinorot shefa of Dikna Kadisha, right? So again, without getting into too much of details of things that are beyond my head and certainly beyond my pay grade, that would be, we'll leave it as that. When you read the Tashlich, the entire text of Tashlich is actually speaking about Dikna Kadisha, the holy Zakan, the holy beard, which is the reason that people would be very machmir. In generations past, you'll find that even if a hair would fall out, they would put it in a sefer, which halachically is very questionable if you could do that. But the reason they would do that is because there's this whole kedusha that is attributed to this in the writings of the Mekubalim. So hence, when you find the Chacham Eliyahu tells everybody to do this, it's not coming out from a vacuum. It's coming from tremendous amount of literature that exists in that area. Fine. So this was like a large tangent that we took over here, but nevertheless says the Gemara. Can you? So that area again, if you pay attention, I was careful to say that almost according to every shita, they're speaking about the Adam's apple, so to speak. There is about to be spoken about that with Razor you're talking about, right? So that's what to be spoken about that. There are those who are lenient, and there are those who say, just don't put razor on anything. Nowadays, Baruch Hashem, we are blessed to have many sophisticated and efficient trimmers, and you could use that, and also it protects the skin in health reasons. Also, would be better than a razor. So not recommended. That's the short answer, right? Without getting into the details of it, says the Gemara.
You refer to the apple there.
Correct. On top of it, yeah. Again, I don't want to get into too many details of it, but yes, there is what to be spoken about that area. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer Omer im netalan. So we spoke in the Mishnah that Rabbi Eliezer had, if you shave the entire beard, you would be hayav one. All 5 areas we hayav one. The Gemara says, how is that possible? Kasavar chad lavu. Even though that there are 5 areas of isur, which means if you would shave with a razor any of the 5 areas of the beard, you would be liable for a lav deoraita. But doesn't mean that there are 5 different lavim that you're going to be over. If you shave one of them, you will be over on one. If you do 2, 3, 4, 5, you're still liable for one, because all of them are part of the same lav that the Torah says, lo tashchit pe'at zekanecha. Right? That area is all considered one lav. Fine. Ve'eno hayav ad she'itelenu betar. The Mishnah said that you are only liable for this if you shave it with a razor, right? So says the Gemara, how do you know? Tanu Rabbanan, u'pe'at zekanam lo yegalechu. The pasuk says that you cannot shave pe'at zakan, the corners of your beard. The full pasuk reads, "Lo yikrechu korcha berosham pa'at kanam lo yigalechu ubivsaram lo yisretu saratit." Right? All these comes together, the bald spots and shaving the beard and cutting yourselves. So says the Gemara, "Yachol afilu gilocho b'misparaim." When it says pa'at zekanam lo yigalechu, giluach means shaving, right? Every verbiage in the Torah has a very specific meaning. There are barely any synonyms. Every word means a very specific thing. So when it says pe'az zekaram lo yigalechu, means don't shave your beard. Well, means don't shave it with a shaver, with a trimmer, with scissors. Don't. That's what it would mean, right? Is it possible, says the Gemara, that would be the translation of this pasuk? Yeah, hayav, that you will be liable for that as well. Talmud lomar, lo tashchit et pe'at zekanecha. There is a separate pasuk that redefines this prohibition when it says lo takifu pe'at roshechem. This is again also in Vayikra, 2 prakim earlier. Velo tashchit et pe'at zekanecha. Do not destroy hashchata et pe'at zekanecha. Now that's a very interesting language for shaving. So it has to be a shaving that has hashchata with it, that destroys the hair from its core, right? From its core it takes it off, which is only with a razor that is smoothens completely and destroys any remnants of the field. Mamash from shoresh, it cuts it. That is only reference to a razor. Lo tashchit, ilot tashchit, says the Gemara, if it's only lo tashchit, yachol im lekato bimlaket v'reitani. Yeah, hayav. If you pull it out, so to speak, you should be hayav. Talmud lomar lo yigalechu, it has to be shaving. That's why you have 2 different languages to completely define what the isur is that the Torah is referring to. Ha-ketzat, how is that possible to put these 2 psukim together? One time it says lo yigalechu, one time it says lo tashchit. Says the Gemara is coming to teach you giluach sheyesh b'ashchata heve omer zetar. is referring to a shaving method that destroys it from its base, which is only possible through tar. So therefore, if you have misparayim ken tar, that would be mutar. Now, this is not to say that all of the shavers nowadays are mutar. Again, we will not discuss those areas of halakha in this shiur. It's literally way beyond the scope of this talk, but you will find many, and we mean many, like the majority of the Eretz Yisrael poskim and many in United States of America, that would say shavers, a lot of them at least, maybe majority of the shavers also are asur. And you would have to check your shaver to make sure yours is okay. Many hold that lift and cut system of the Philips company, that is for sure equivalent to tar, because the way it is, if you have opened and paid attention to the circle of 10, I think it's 10 mini blades that they have, each one of the blades has also a metal non-sharp blade that sticks out just a little half a millimeter from it, which it's like a kofitz, it's like a spring that gets stuck, it's supposed to get stuck to the hair. All of that happens in a millisecond and pulls it in, and then the actual razor cuts from the top of the skin like a razor. So if they are correct in what they preach, if their system that they advertise is actually efficient and works, it's not just the stealing method of lying in business propaganda. If it actually works, it's absolutely tar. It's absolutely shaving with a razor. So that would be the reason for all those poskim who say lift and cut. You have to take it and with a plier take everything out, which basically it's very difficult to do. Actually, it's much easier, much easier said than done. I've tried it. It's not an easy thing to do. But the others who say, nah, this whole thing is business, but it can't be sharp, because if it's sharp, then it doesn't need the surface of the filter, the screen on top, and it cuts. Without that, that's the belief of Rav Moshe Heinemann, Shlita, and whoever follows him based on Rav Moshe Feinstein's understanding. And then you have Chacham Ovadia that wrote an entire kuntras on this, printed in Yabia Omer in Chelek Tet, in Chelek Yored Asim and Yud, which is a long and wide and deep and very complex piece of work that he wrote 40 plus years before he published it. And he tends to be a little more lenient, but he also has his stringencies of how to do it and how not to do it, and so on. So that gets again into all the questions of misparayim kentar, whether or not that is applicable to nowadays to the shavers and the trimmers that we have nowadays. You have also this new trimmer that is called, I think, one blade, right? Which is a big hot topic question, and it's unclear what exactly is the stance of poskim. The Star K, my friend Mordechai Frankel, my dear friend, who is very active in Star K, and Rav Heinemann, that I used to learn with him privately for many years. He went back and forth on it, and he ended up saying that he's unsure about the status of this, so therefore you have to check each one of them alone to see how sharp the thing is, which is technically impossible, because you would have to tear apart the very thin and very sophisticatedly made shield and the blade on top, which would say just stay away from it. But on the other hand, Rabbi Israel Reisman said that the last question that he asked from Rabbi David Feinstein alav shalom was this question, and he allowed it. And there are others who say the same thing about Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, the Rav, the Mechaber, who I just was speaking about with him about a month ago, that put out the Kovitz Tshuvot of Rabbi Yashiv, Kovitz Halachot of Shmuel Shlita, rather, he wrote a Sefer of Tshuvot, and he actually has an entire siman discussing this specific trimmer to be lenient. So there again, I'm just putting out there, I'm not suggesting that it should be mutar or asur. I'm just suggesting that these are questions that one should ask and one should definitely be mindful of, because again, the sugya here is a complex sugya. So says that, just going to get this to the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, afilu lakat b'mlaked v'reitani chayav, that even if you take a tool out of your garage and you shave your face with it, you still would be chayav. Fine. Manafshach. So the Gemara says, wait a second. What exactly is? How would you slice this? You have to explain yourself. I gamir gezer hashava libaitar. If you learn gezer hashava, he would end up with needing tar, a razor. Ilo gamir gezer hashava. And if he's not learning gezer hashava, then misparaim namilo. Then he should be asur even with scissors. The Gemara says no. Lo leolam gamir gezer hashava. He does learn gezer hashava. V'kasavar haninami giluach avdi. He holds that these items of the melaked and reitani also are considered shaving. Shaving does not have to be necessarily with a razor or with misparayim. It could be with anything. It's still considered a shave, and therefore he includes that because he has hashchata. He takes it from the root, and that is considered also asur, which again opens doors to halachic discussions, which we are out of time right now. But Be'ezrat Hashem will continue this in the days to come.